Elias woke inside an orc woman's tent with a marriage mark drying over his heart, and the woman who had painted it sharpening a knife beside the bed. For several seconds, he assumed the blow to his head had finally killed him. The tent ceiling was stitched from black hides. Snow pressed against the outer walls, turning the morning light blue. A low iron stove breathed heat into the narrow space. Bundles of winter herbs hung above it, and somewhere beyond the hide flap, many deep voices were chanting in a language Elias understood only when it was shouted at him. The orc woman sat on a wooden chest 3 feet away. She was tall even while seated, with powerful shoulders beneath a sleeveless dark brown tunic. Her skin was a rich forest green, warmed by the fire. 2 small ivory tusks curved past her lower lip. A thin silver ring circled the left one. Heavy black hair had been divided into several practical braids and bound behind her neck with red cord. One pale scar crossed her right eyebrow without touching the amber eye beneath it. She drew a whetstone down the edge of a hunting knife. Slowly, without looking at him, Elias tested his limbs. His left ankle was wrapped, his ribs complained. His shirt had been opened to the waist, and a dark red symbol covered the skin from his left collarbone to the center of his chest. It looked like 2 antlers curved around a small flame. The lines were still wet. He reached toward them. "Do not wipe it off," the woman said. Her human speech was precise, though the low roughness of her voice made every word sound like a warning. Elias stopped with his fingertips an inch from the mark. "Why?" "Because there are 300 people outside this tent who currently believe you are under my protection. And if they stop believing that?" The knife slid once more along the stone. "Some will want you questioned. Several will want you traded. One will demand your head before breakfast." Elias looked at the painted antlers again. "What kind of protection mark is this?" The orc woman finally raised her eyes to him. "A marriage mark." The chanting outside ended. In the sudden silence, Elias heard snow sliding from the tent roof. "I am sorry," he said. "A what?" "You heard me?" "I was unconscious." "Yes." "And you married me?" "No." That answer would be more reassuring if I did not have a wedding painted across my chest. The corner of her mouth moved, revealing a little more of the small tusks. Not quite a smile. She put the knife aside. "My name is Zura. This is the winter camp of the Ashhorn clan. You crossed the northern boundary during the first storm and collapsed beside our sacred road. Clan law allows an outsider to survive inside the camp under 3 conditions. He arrives carrying a recognized peace banner. He is too young to carry a weapon. Or a member of the clan places that person beneath family protection." Elias looked around the tent. His travel cloak hung near the stove, torn and stiff with old ice. His leather map case lay open on a table. No peace banner appeared among his possessions. "You chose family protection. You were bleeding into the snow. You could have called me a cousin. Clan cousins are born, not invented. A brother? That requires my mother's consent. She died 12 winters ago and is difficult to consult. So marriage was the convenient option. Convenient is not the word I would use." Elias pushed himself upright. Pain went around his ribs like a tightening belt. Zura crossed the distance before he could pretend it did not hurt. One large green hand caught his shoulder while the other steadied his side. Her touch was careful. It was also warm enough to make him realize how cold he remained beneath the blankets. "Slowly," she said. "I am attempting dignity. Attempt it while breathing." He let her arrange a rolled fur behind his back. Up close, he saw faint white paint along the edges of her eyes and a narrow silver chain disappearing beneath her tunic. She smelled of pine smoke, winter leather, and the bitter herbs hanging above the stove. "Is the mark permanent?" he asked. "No." "Binding?" "Not yet." "That is an unpleasant final word." Zura sat on the edge of the sleeping platform. It was the only bed in the tent, broad enough for 2 people if neither valued distance. "The mark gave you shelter through the night," she said. "At sunset, the clan gathers for the binding meal. If you wash it away before then, I will escort you beyond our border. No marriage, no debt, no claim. And if I leave it? Then you stand beside me before the fire and declare that you wear it by choice. And we become married. Promised. The final vow occurs after 1 moon. If you enjoy original Orcbound fantasy romances and want to support the creation of future stories, you can join Tales from Orc on Patreon. The link is waiting in the description. Now, back to Zura and Elias. Elias rubbed a hand over his face. "I came north to deliver a map. You arrived without one." He turned toward the open case. Empty straps crossed the velvet lining. The rolled survey that should have been secured inside was gone. His last clear memory returned in pieces. The mountain road, snow moving sideways, 3 riders emerging between the pines. Human riders, not orcs. Their cloaks had carried no crest. One had struck his horse with an arrow. Another had demanded the map before Elias understood there would be no negotiation. He remembered running into the trees. He remembered blood on the snow. Then a green face above him, and a voice ordering him not to close his eyes. "Where did you find me?" he asked. "Half a mile below the Stone Teeth Pass." "Was anyone else there?" 2 dead horses, blood belonging to at least 3 people. Tracks heading east. "My map was stolen." "So I assumed?" Elias tried to stand. Zura pressed one hand flat against the center of his chest, directly over the painted flame. He stopped for reasons that had nothing to do with pain. Her palm covered most of the mark. Heat moved from her skin into his. Their eyes met, and for an instant the strange tent seemed smaller than before. "Your ankle will not carry you," she said. "The map cannot wait." "What does it show?" He hesitated. Zura's gaze hardened. "I painted my family mark on a stranger to keep his blood inside his body. You may continue treating me like an enemy, but do not expect me to help you like a friend." Elias looked down at her hand over his heart. "It shows a military road through the western mountains," he said. "A road that should not exist." Zura removed her palm slowly. "Human soldiers, supply wagons, artillery positions, winter wells. Someone has prepared an invasion route through territory both kingdoms declared closed." Outside, a horn sounded once. Zura stood. "Then the men who took it will not leave the mountains," she said. "How can you know?" She took her heavy red winter cloak from a peg and fastened it across her shoulders. "Because the eastern path ends here." The tent flap opened before she reached it. A broad orc warrior stood outside, snow across the iron plates on his shoulders. He was older than Zura, with gray threaded through a shaved black beard and 1 broken tusk. His eyes moved immediately to Elias's open shirt, then to the marriage mark. "The council is waiting," he said in the orc language. Elias understood enough to hear the disapproval. Zura answered in the same language. "They can continue." The warrior's jaw tightened. "You marked a human without witnesses. I prevented a wounded traveler from freezing. You placed our clan flame on his skin. It washes away. Not from what people remember." Zura stepped closer to the entrance, placing her body between the warrior and the bed. "If you came to stare at my guest, Sorn, you have finished. So the third name entered the tent with the cold. Sorn looked over her shoulder at Elias. Can he understand us? Enough, Elias answered in careful Orcish. More when people speak slowly. Sorn's surprise lasted only a moment. Then hear this slowly. The mark on your chest is older than any human road. Do not treat it as a joke. I am having difficulty finding the humorous part. Zura's tusks shifted with a restrained smile. Sorn noticed. His attention returned to her. The council. Now. Bring food first. For him? Unless the council wants my promised husband to starve before sunset. The word struck the warrior more effectively than a fist. Sorn left without another look. Zura closed the flap. Elias stared at her. Promised husband? He was becoming tiresome. And this improved the situation? For me. She reached for her gloves. Who is he? Elias asked. The clan's war speaker. He dislikes humans. He dislikes changes he did not command. Does that include your marriage? Zura looked toward the closed tent flap. Especially that. Food arrived in the hands of a nervous young hunter who kept looking at the mark and then pretending he had not. The tray held smoked goat, hot roots, coarse bread, and a clay cup of broth strong enough to wake the dead. Elias ate while Zura prepared to leave. She buckled a wide leather belt over her tunic, secured the hunting knife at one hip, and placed a short, recurved bow across her back. Her red cloak fell almost to her boots. When she lifted her braids free of the collar, Elias noticed the powerful line of her neck and looked away before she caught him. She caught him. The mark is lower, she said. He nearly inhaled the broth. What? You were staring near my shoulder. Your marriage mark is lower. I was not looking for the mark. Then your aim is worse than I feared. Elias set down the cup. Do orc women always mock injured guests? Only the ones who survive. She knelt in front of him and began checking the wrap around his ankle. Her fingers were broad but precise, pressing along the bone without causing more pain than necessary. Nothing is broken, she said. You may stand by midday. You will not walk beyond camp. You plan to search for the map. I plan to find the tracks. Take me. No. I can identify the men. You can identify the floor when you fall onto it. The survey uses a cipher. Her hands paused on the bandage. Without me, he continued, the map appears to show 3 usable roads. Only one is real. If the thieves choose incorrectly, they may disappear into the snow. If they choose correctly, they reach the western ridge before tomorrow. Where an army could use it. Yes. Zura retied the wrap and rose. Stand. Elias placed both feet on the carpet. The left ankle protested but held. He rose carefully. The tent turned sideways. Zura caught him before gravity completed its opinion. One arm circled his waist. His hands landed on her shoulders. The red cloak opened around them, and his bare chest met the fitted leather at the front of her tunic. For a few breaths, neither adjusted. Zura was taller than he had realized, her eyes nearly level with his. Firelight warmed the green of her cheek. The silver ring around her tusk shone inches from his mouth. Her arm tightened slightly at his waist. The floor, she said, as predicted. I remain above it. Because I am holding you. Then your prediction lacks evidence. Something amused and wary moved through her amber eyes. She guided him back to the bed. This time, her hand left his waist reluctantly enough that he noticed. You will remain here, she said. And if I refuse? Zura fastened the cloak again. Then remove the mark, leave my tent, and explain your ankle to the council. You use freedom as a weapon. Only against stubborn men. She opened the flap. Snowlight flooded the tent. Beyond her stood a camp unlike anything Elias had expected. Hundreds of hide tents formed wide circles across a sheltered mountain basin. Smoke rose through falling snow. Orc children ran between cooking fires while hunters repaired sleds and warriors carried bundles of arrows toward a timber wall. At the center stood a ring of ancient stones, each carved with antlers surrounding a flame. The same symbol drying on his chest. Every face within sight turned toward Zura's tent, then toward Elias. Zura stepped outside and let the flap close behind her. Elias sat in the sudden warmth and silence. For 14 years, he had drawn borders for human lords who believed a line became real when enough soldiers guarded it. The Ashhorn camp made no sense on any official map. According to those maps, the basin was empty rock. According to his own eyes, it contained homes, families, storehouses, and enough winter preparation to survive a siege. According to the red mark over his heart, it might also contain his future wife. He waited until Zura's footsteps disappeared. Then he stood again. The tent still moved, but less than before. He found his boots, pulled on the least damaged one, and secured a fur-lined camp shoe over the injured foot. His shirt remained open because closing it would smear the mark. Zura had left his belt, but removed his knife. Reasonable. He wrapped a blanket around his shoulders and stepped outside. The camp seemed to pause when Elias stepped outside. Hunters, elders, and children stared at the red mark visible above his open shirt. According to every official human map, the basin held only empty rock. His own eyes found homes, storehouses, and families prepared to survive winter. He reached the nearest marriage stone. Its carving showed two figures protecting a flame between their hands. "It is not decoration," Sorn said behind him. The war speaker explained the oldest clan promise. One partner did not eat while the other starved, sleep while the other froze, or walk into danger alone. Elias glanced toward the eastern trail where Zura had gone. "She has already broken the last rule," Sorn said. "Your danger became hers when she marked you. The mark is temporary. Paint is temporary. Choice is not. You wanted her to choose you." Sorn's broken tusk showed. "I wanted her to choose someone who understood what she offered." Before Elias could answer, the eastern warning horn sounded 3 times. Warriors rushed toward the gate. Zura entered through the timber wall leading a riderless horse. It was Elias's horse. An arrow remained buried in the saddle. Dark blood stained Zura's red cloak, but she did not appear wounded. She saw Elias beside the marriage stone. Her expression became very still. He raised one hand. "Before you become angry, return to the tent. I found the floor highly predictable." "Elias." It was the first time she had used his name. The sound of it in her voice removed the humor from him. He went to her. Zura caught the blanket at his throat and pulled it closed over the exposed mark. To anyone watching, the gesture looked possessive. Her fingers against his collarbone felt protective. "The blood?" he asked. "One of the riders. Alive?" When he stopped talking. She handed the horse's reins to another hunter. They separated. 2 went east, 1 returned south. With a map, the eastern tracks carry the case. Sorn joined them. "My scouts will follow." "Your scouts report to the council before they breathe," Zura said. "By the time permission arrives, the thieves will reach the ridge." "And you plan to chase them with an injured human?" "He knows the false roads." Elias looked at her. "You changed your mind." "I found your horse 6 miles away. The men have a lead." Sorn's gaze moved between them. The council will not permit him beyond the camp while he wears our mark. Then the council may try to stop us. Zura turned toward her tent. Elias followed, limping faster than dignity preferred. Behind them, Sorn called her name. She did not look back. Inside, Zura dropped the blood-stained cloak onto the chest and pulled down a second one, this one charcoal gray. She packed rope, dried meat, 2 blankets, a clay jar of red pigment, and enough weapons to invade a small country. Elias watched from the entrance. Why bring the pigment? Snow and sweat will damage the mark. You intend to repaint it? Unless you prefer every patrol we meet to debate your legal status. Will you ask permission this time? Zura stopped packing. The question changed the room. She faced him fully. I should have asked before. He had expected a defense. The absence of one unsettled him more. You were unconscious, she continued. You were dying. I chose the only law that kept the council away from you until morning. I would make the same choice again. But it was still your skin. Elias looked down at the antlers in flame. You saved my life, he said. That is not consent. He met her eyes. There was no flirtation in her expression now, only a hard honesty that offered him nothing easy. Ask me, he said. Zura came closer. May I keep the mark on you until we recover the map and return? Yes. Do you understand that the camp will treat us as promised while you wear it? I understand they already do. Do you understand that some will test whether you are worthy of it? Less clearly. Sorn may challenge you. With what? Whatever makes him feel impressive. Elias smiled despite himself. Then yes. Zura's shoulders eased. She reached toward the blanket at his throat, then waited. He opened it for her. Her gaze lowered to the marriage mark. The pigment had dried to the color of dark wine against his skin. One line near his collarbone had cracked. Zura touched it with the pad of her thumb. The contact was light. Elias felt it everywhere. After we return, she said, you may wash it away before the binding meal. You keep mentioning that. Because freedom repeated is easier to believe. He looked at her bent head, at the black braids falling over one green shoulder. And if I do not wash it away? Zura's thumb stopped over his heart. She looked up. Then we will have a different problem, she said. Zura left before noon with 2 horses and a narrow supply sled. Elias rode because his injured ankle could not manage the deep snow. She followed the thieves' faint trail east through black pines, while the Ashhorn camp disappeared behind the storm. By afternoon, they entered a narrow gorge. Zura dismounted beside a patch of dark snow. Blood? Elias asked. Horse. An arrow struck the tree beside her head. Zura pulled Elias from the saddle before the second arrow crossed the path. 2 human archers waited on the cliff above them. She dropped one with her bow, but the other remained protected behind a shelf of stone. Elias noticed a dark crack through the ledge. Frozen meltwater held it to the mountain. The ice behind him, he called. Zura understood. Her first arrow chipped the frozen seam, the second split it. Stone broke away beneath the archer and carried him into a deep snowbank. Only after the gorge went quiet did Zura cross to Elias. She caught his jaw and turned his face toward the light, searching for blood. You were afraid, he said, for your useful knowledge. The map is stolen. Then for your irritating conversation. Her thumb remained against his cheek, longer than inspection required. One of their horses had been killed. They transferred its supplies to the sled and continued after dark with Zura walking beside Elias's mount. Wind drove snow through every seam of his coat, and his injured ankles swelled until she ordered them toward an old shepherd shelter. How comfortable? He asked. It has almost 4 walls. That word is doing dangerous work. The shelter waited beneath a stone overhang with a fire pit and a platform of dry pine needles. Zura secured the horse while Elias attempted to light the fire without admitting how badly his hands shook from the cold. The shelter had 4 walls after all, though one was made of stacked branches and old snow. A stone fire pit occupied the center. A platform of dry pine needles filled the back. Zura secured the horse beneath an overhang while Elias started the fire. He had enough pride not to mention that the task took 3 attempts. She entered carrying both bedrolls. Snow covered her cloak and braids. Her green cheeks had darkened with cold. She removed her gloves and extended her hands toward the fire. Elias looked at her fingers. The tips had gone pale. "Sit closer," he said. "I am close. You are 2 feet away. The fire is large. Your hands disagree." Zura gave him the expression normally reserved for poor directions, but she moved beside him. They sat shoulder to shoulder on the pine platform. Heat slowly returned to the shelter. Elias removed his damp coat. When he began unfastening his shirt, Zura looked away with exaggerated discipline. "The mark," he said. "Snow reached it." I was not concerned. "You stared at it for most of the morning." "I was checking whether you attempted escape by washing." "From horseback?" "Humans are inventive when avoiding commitment." He opened the shirt. The upper antler had blurred where melting snow crossed his collarbone. The central flame remained intact. Zura removed the pigment jar. "May I repair it?" "Yes." She moved in front of him on her knees. The shelter became quiet, except for the fire. Zura mixed a little water into the red clay and dipped one fingertip into it. She traced the broken line from his shoulder toward the center of his chest. Elias watched her face. Her concentration tightened the scar above her eye. Firelight shone along the silver ring on her tusk. Several black braids had loosened from the red cord and fallen beside her cheek. The pigment felt cool. Her other hand rested lightly against his ribs to steady herself. "This is not how I expected to spend the day," he said. "You expected an invasion map?" "I expected to deliver one and return south before the first deep snow." "Do you have someone waiting there?" The question sounded casual enough to expose itself. "My landlord," Elias said. "He is passionate about rent." "No wife?" "No." "Promised woman?" "No." "Persistent widow?" He smiled. "There was one, but she preferred my horse." "The dead one?" "My other horse." "You own many horses for a mapmaker." "I lose many horses for a mapmaker." Zura completed one antler and began the other. "What about you?" he asked. Her fingertip paused. "Persistent widower," he added. "No." "Promised warrior?" "No." "Sorn?" The red line went slightly crooked. Zura corrected it. Sorn asked twice. "What did you say?" "The first time, no." "And the second?" I asked whether his hearing had improved. Elias laughed. Pain pulled at his ribs, but he did not stop. Zura sat back on her heels. "You find that amusing." "I find him deserving. He is not cruel, only charming. He believes the clan survives through rules. Rules gave him a place after his parents died. He trusts them more than people. And he wanted to marry you. He wanted 2 respected families joined before winter. I was a suitable answer." "Did he love you?" Zura looked at the wet mark instead of Elias. "He never asked whether I loved him." The answer remained between them. Elias looked at the painted flame over his heart. "And this mark? What about it? Did you use it before?" "No." "Not even temporarily?" "No." Then I am your first unconscious husband. Her amber gaze rose slowly. You are my first marked man. The air changed. Elias became aware that his shirt was open. Zura knelt between his knees, and her fingertips remained red with the symbol she had drawn over his heart. He touched one loose braid beside her face. May I? He asked. Yes. He tucked it behind her pointed ear. His fingers brushed warm green skin. Zura's breath shifted. One of her hands closed on his knee, not to restrain him, but to remain steady. Their faces moved closer by a distance too small to blame on either person. The fire cracked. Neither looked away. A horse whinnied outside. Zura stood so quickly that her shoulder struck his chin. Elias caught her waist to keep her from falling. She caught his shoulders. They froze in an awkward embrace. Your mountain has poor timing, Elias said. The mountain is protective. Of whom? Zura stepped away and reached for her bow. That is what I intend to discover. Outside, the horse stared into the darkness beyond the shelter. Zura crouched beside the tracks. Someone had approached from the west, stopped 30 paces away, and retreated. Scout? Elias whispered. Yes. Human? Zura touched the print. Orc. Sorn? Heavier. Do you know every person by his boot? Only the irritating ones. They slept in turns. At least, that was the plan. Zura took the first watch beside the fire. Elias lay beneath one blanket on the pine platform, while she sat with her back against the stone wall. He woke some time later because the fire had nearly died. Zura was still awake. Her cloak covered her legs. Frost silvered the shelter entrance. The temperature had fallen hard enough that each breath clouded. You were supposed to wake me, he said. You need rest. So do you. I can sleep tomorrow. You said that yesterday. Yesterday was crowded. Elias sat up. His ribs protested less than before. His ankle protested more. He held out the second blanket. Come here. Zura looked at him. We share the fire, he said. Your stone explained it. The stone did not mean a blanket. Then the stone lacked practical detail. She looked toward the opening. Wind pushed snow through the branch wall. Finally, she moved to the platform. Zura lay on top of the blanket at first, fully dressed and rigid enough to be mistaken for timber. Elias pulled the second fur over both of them. The platform was wide enough if they lay close. They did. Zura's back rested against his chest. Her braids smelled faintly of smoke. One of his arms settled along her waist because there was nowhere else to put it that did not appear more suspicious. You are tense, he whispered. I am armed. That does not answer me. It usually does. He felt a low laugh move through her body. Warmth gathered beneath the blankets. Elias's hand rested against the leather belt at her waist. Zura's fingers found his and moved them several inches upward, away from the knife at her hip. For safety, she said. Entirely. She did not release his hand. Sometime before dawn, Elias woke with his face against the back of her neck, and Zura's body fitted along the full length of his. Neither pretended it was accidental. Her thumb moved slowly across his knuckles. The mark will survive until morning, she said. Are you checking? I can feel the paint against my arm. You could move. So could you. He tightened his arm fractionally. Zura's thumb stopped, then continued. They slept again. At first light, they found a strip of white cloth tied to a pine branch 30 yards east. Human military cloth. Beneath it lay one page torn from Elias's stolen survey. He opened it across the saddle. The thieves had marked the false northern road with charcoal. Beside it, a rough note listed travel times, wagon weights, and a date. Tonight. They believe this route reaches the western ridge, Elias said. Does it? It reaches a frozen lake beneath a cornice. What happens if 50 supply wagons cross it? The lake probably holds. The cornice does not. Zura studied him. An avalanche. Large enough to bury the road and everyone on it. Why would they choose the false route? Because someone wants the army destroyed. The conclusion changed the cold around them. The hidden military road was not merely preparation for an invasion. Someone had supplied false information to its own soldiers while stealing the correct map. War from both directions, Zura said. Human bodies buried on Orc land. Your lords blame us. My council calls for revenge. And whoever owns the true road moves an army through after both sides are fighting. Zura looked back toward the Ashhorn Basin. Sorn warned the council that humans would attack before spring. Did he know about the road? No, but fear makes evidence unnecessary. They heard riders before they saw them. 6 orcs emerged between the pines. Sorn led them. He dismounted with his axe across his back and anger visible from a useful distance. Zura folded the torn map page. You followed us. I sent a scout. He reported an ambush, 1 dead horse, and 2 fools sleeping in a ruin while strangers circled them. Elias looked at the trees. How romantic. Sorn ignored him. The council orders your return. Then the council may come collect me. The binding meal begins at sunset. Zura's face hardened. There will be no meal if an army dies beneath an avalanche and our camp receives the blame. She handed him the page. Sorn read it once, then again. His anger changed direction. How long? He asked Elias. If the wagons move at dawn, they reach the lake before midnight. The riders with your map? Several hours ahead. Sorn returned the paper. We divide. My hunters warn the camp and close the western wall. You 2 follow the map. Zura raised an eyebrow. The council ordered my return. I misunderstood. You never misunderstand orders. The weather was loud. For the first time, Elias saw why Zura did not hate him. Sorn turned to the other riders and gave instructions. 5 headed west. He remained. You are returning with them? Zura asked. No. Why? The trail above the lake requires 3 people to cross safely. Elias looked between them. Does every Ashhorn rule involve a specific number? Only the sensible ones, Sorn said. They rode east together. The path climbed above the tree line. Wind carved the snow into hard waves. Far below, the forest looked black and still. Sorn rode ahead most of the time. Zura stayed beside Elias. His ankle had gone from painful to numb, which Zura considered worse. At each stop, she made him move his toes and inspected the skin above the wrap. During the 3rd check, Sorn watched from several paces away. You touch him often, he said in Orcish. Zura answered without looking up. He is injured often. He looks pleased by it. Elias replied in the same language. My vocabulary is limited, but not that limited. Sorn's broken tusk lifted. Good. Then you understand when I say the mark does not make you strong enough for her. Zura finished the knot and stood. He does not need to be strong for me. Sorn looked at her. Every promised pair shares burdens. Yes. What burden can he carry? Elias unfolded the torn survey page and held it toward him. This one, apparently. Zura's laugh escaped before she stopped it. Sorn mounted without answering. By late afternoon, the trail ended at a narrow shelf beneath a wall of blue ice. The frozen lake stretched below. Across it, tiny dark shapes moved in a line. Wagons, dozens of them. The army had arrived sooner than Elias calculated. At the lake's northern edge, 2 riders carried his map case toward a signal fire. A third figure waited beside a covered sled. Zura lifted a small brass viewing tube. "Human officer," she said. "No crest." "He will signal the wagons onto the false route," Elias said. "And then?" "The cornice falls when the final wagons reach the center." Soren studied the ice wall above them. "Can we stop the avalanche?" "Not from here." "Can we stop the wagons?" "The signal fire tells them the route is safe. If it remains dark, they wait." Zura closed the tube. "Then we take the fire." The shortest path descended a cliff of ice. The safer path required 3 hours. They had one. Soren unpacked ropes. "The sensible rule," he said, "is 3 people." They descended together. Zura went first, cutting steps into the ice. Soren anchored the rope above. Elias moved between them, his injured ankle useless on the narrow holds. Halfway down, the wind changed. Snow streamed across the cliff. Elias's damaged boots slipped. His weight struck the rope. Zura caught him from below with one arm around his thighs, while Soren held from above. For several seconds, Elias hung against the ice with his face level with Zura's. "This is becoming a habit," he said. "Falling? You holding me?" Her amber eyes flashed. "Try to dislike it." "I have tried." Soren's voice came from above. "If you finish flirting, the army remains in danger." Zura drove her ice hook into the wall. "He is jealous." "I heard that," Soren called. They reached the base as the sky darkened. The officers' camp lay beyond a line of snow-covered rocks. 4 human soldiers guarded the signal fire. The 2 thieves had joined them. Elias recognized one as the man who had struck him on the mountain road. Zura counted weapons. 6 bows, 2 swords, 1 crossbow. Soren touched his axe. 3 of us." "Your rules approve," Elias whispered. The signal fire was prepared but not lit. Beside it stood a tall frame holding a red lantern. When darkness became complete, the officer would raise the lantern and guide the wagons onto the lake. Elias examined the slope behind the camp. A narrow water channel ran beneath the snow. Steam rose from one opening. "Hot spring," he said. Zura followed his gaze. "The snow above it is hollow." "How hollow?" "Enough." They moved along the rocks. Soren remained uphill with his bow. Zura and Elias crawled toward the spring channel. The snow roof trembled beneath every gust. At the edge, Elias found the stone valve used by old shepherds to direct warm water into winter pens. He understood the mechanism immediately. "You built this?" Zura whispered. "My guild did. Before the border closed." "Can it flood the camp?" "No." "Disappointing." "It can fill the hollow snow with steam. What does that accomplish?" Elias looked at the red lantern. "Privacy." He turned the valve. Hot water rushed beneath the snow. Steam broke through in white columns, thickening until it covered the rocks, the camp, and the signal frame. Soldiers shouted. Soren fired from above. The red lantern shattered before it could rise. Zura moved through the steam like something born inside it. One guard lost his bow. Another found himself face down in snow with her knee between his shoulders. Elias reached the map case. The thief who had attacked him stepped from the fog with a short sword. "You should have died on the road," the man said. Elias backed toward the hot spring channel. "Many people have mentioned that today." The thief lunged. Elias caught his wrist with both hands. The sword passed beneath his arm. His ankle failed. They fell together beside the open channel. The thief reached for Elias's throat. A green hand seized the back of the man's coat and lifted him away. Zura threw him into the snow. "You were told to stay behind me," she said. "I was collecting my property." She looked at the map case beneath him. Poorly. Soren emerged through the steam, dragging the human officer by one arm. Blood darkened the officer's temple, but he remained conscious. The other soldiers had fled toward the wagons. "Stop the signal," the officer laughed. "The final order was sent yesterday. They cross whether they see the lantern or not." Far across the lake, the first wagon moved onto the ice, then the second. Elias looked up at the cornice. A dark crack ran through the snow above it. "How long?" Zura asked. "Less than an hour." Soren tightened his grip on the prisoner. "We warn them. They will not hear us across the lake. Then we reach them. The ice between here and the road is thin." Zura looked at Elias's restored map case. "The true route?" He opened it. The main survey remained inside, but the cipher key was missing. He did not need it. Every line was his. A maintenance tunnel ran beneath the western slope. It had been built for mining carts before the pass closed. The entrance lay less than half a mile south. The tunnel emerged beside the army's leading wagons. "There," he said. Zura looked at the fading light. "Can we reach it?" "If the map is still accurate." Soren shoved the officer toward a tree and bound him. "If it is not?" he asked. Elias secured the case across his chest. "Then I become a less valuable husband." Zura caught the front of his green-brown coat. "You are not allowed to make that joke before danger." "What joke is permitted?" She pulled him closer until her tusks were inches from his mouth. "The one after we survive." Then she released him and ran toward the southern rocks. The maintenance tunnel entrance was hidden beneath a frozen waterfall. Elias found the iron ring behind the ice and pulled until his injured ankle nearly gave way. Zura joined him. Together they opened a stone door just wide enough to enter. The tunnel smelled of mineral water and old timber. Mine rails vanished into darkness. Soren lit a pitch torch while Zura secured the door behind them. They ran, or tried to. Elias managed a determined limp. Zura stayed beside him instead of using the speed she clearly possessed. Soren moved ahead, testing rotten planks and calling back warnings. The mountain groaned above them. Dust fell from the beams. "The cornice?" Zura asked. "Not yet," Elias said. "The mine settling." "That was meant to reassure me?" "No." They reached a collapsed section. A wall of stone and splintered timber blocked the rails. Cold air moved through a black opening near the ceiling. Soren looked at Elias. "The map?" "The tunnel should continue directly behind this." "Should?" "It was built 40 years ago. Your profession relies heavily on old confidence." Zura climbed the fallen beams. "There is space above." She disappeared into the opening. Elias followed. His ankle made the climb ugly. Halfway up, Zura reached down and caught both his wrists. She pulled him through until he landed across her body in the narrow passage. Neither had room to move. Her back pressed against stone. His chest rested against hers. The marriage mark touched the leather over her heart. Zura's hands remained at his sides. "This is not the joke after danger," she whispered. "We are technically inside the mountain. Very safe." He could feel her breath against his lips. A pale scar crossed her eyebrow. Snow melt shone in the black braids beside her cheek. Her amber eyes held a question neither had time to ask. Soren pushed Elias's boot from below. "Move." They crawled through. The tunnel beyond sloped toward blue daylight. Through the opening, Elias saw the first wagons crossing the lake. Soldiers marched beside them, heads lowered against the wind. A rider carried a red lantern at the front. "The signal survived," Zura said. "Another lantern," Elias answered. The crack above the cornice widened. A line of black powder had been packed into it. Thin rope ran from the charge down the slope to a sheltered position near the road. The thieves had never trusted nature to finish the work. "They will trigger it when the center wagons reach the lake," Elias said. Sorn pointed toward the rope. "I can cut it." "Not without crossing open ground. I am difficult to shoot." Zura looked toward the army. "We need them off the ice." Elias opened the map case and removed the survey. "The mine rail exits beneath the lake road. There should be an ore bell outside." "A bell?" Sorn asked. "Louder than shouting." They emerged from the tunnel beneath a wooden platform. The ore bell still hung above it, green with age. Elias seized the rope. The first pull produced a dull iron boom. Soldiers turned. He rang again. An officer near the leading wagons shouted for the column to halt. The red lantern rider continued waving them forward. Zura climbed onto the platform. Her charcoal cloak opened in the wind. Against the white mountain, her green skin and dark braids were unmistakable. She shouted in human speech, "The ridge is trapped!" Several bows turned toward her. Elias stepped beside her, holding the stolen survey above his head. "I am the royal cartographer who drew this road. The route is false. Look above you." The soldiers looked. The lantern rider drew a sword and charged the platform. Sorn met him at the base. The orc's axe broke the sword without slowing. The rider fell from the saddle. Sorn caught the red lantern before it hit the snow and threw it into the mine entrance. The army stopped. For one hopeful breath, nothing moved. Then a bowstring snapped from the rocks. A burning arrow crossed the slope and struck the powder rope beyond Sorn's reach. Fire raced upward. "Run!" Elias shouted. The mountain answered first. The cornice broke with a sound too large to understand. Snow folded over the ridge. The leading soldiers abandoned the wagons and ran toward the mine platform. Those farther onto the lake scattered in every direction. Elias saw the true danger. The avalanche would miss the stone platform. It would strike the lake, break the ice, and drown everyone still on it beneath tons of snow. He opened the survey on the boards. "Old drainage channel," he said. "West side. The ice is supported by a stone causeway." Zura understood immediately. She climbed onto the fallen rider's horse. "What are you doing?" Elias demanded. "Showing them the road. The avalanche is already moving. They will not follow a map they cannot see." She kicked the horse forward. Elias caught the edge of her cloak. The fabric pulled through his hand. "Zura." She looked back once. The marriage mark felt suddenly hot against his chest. One does not walk into danger alone. Elias grabbed the ore cart beside the platform. Its wheels remained on the old rails. Sorn stared at him. "No. You said 3 people crossed safely. That was a cliff. I am expanding the rule." He released the brake. The cart rolled down the slope after Zura. Sorn swore in 2 languages and jumped into it. They gathered speed. Ahead, Zura rode onto the lake, shouting and pointing west. Soldiers followed her. Wagons turned slowly, wheels slipping across the ice. The avalanche filled half the sky. Elias reached the first rail switch and leaned from the cart. The lever had frozen. Sorn struck it with the flat of his axe. The rails shifted toward the causeway. The cart turned hard enough to lift one wheel. They flew onto the lake. Cracks spread through the unsupported ice behind the final wagon. Horses screamed. Soldiers pushed at the wheels. Zura reached the western causeway and turned back. Everyone else moved toward safety. She moved toward Elias. "What is she doing?" Sorn shouted. "Following a rule." The avalanche struck the eastern lake. Ice rose like broken glass. A white wave moved across the surface. The cart reached the causeway as the rails behind it vanished. Zura rode beside them and leaned from the saddle. Elias caught her forearm. Sorn caught his belt. The horse lost its footing at the edge of the stone road. Zura slipped from the saddle, hanging between Elias and the collapsing lake. For one suspended second, her amber eyes met his. "You should have stayed behind me," she said. "You should choose easier rules." Together, Elias and Sorn pulled her into the ore cart. The horse disappeared into the white water. The cart entered the mine tunnel an instant before snow covered the entrance. Darkness swallowed them. The cart continued down the old rails. It struck a timber barrier, broke through, and stopped in a mountain of empty grain sacks. Silence followed. Then Sorn's voice came from beneath them. "I withdraw my earlier question." Elias lifted his face from Zura's shoulder. "Which question?" "What burden you can carry." Zura lay half beneath him, one arm around his back. "At present, he is carrying none of it." Elias tried to rise. Her arm tightened. "Wait," she said. Sorn crawled from beneath the sacks, collected the torch, and walked several respectful steps into the tunnel. Zura looked at Elias. No storm, army, council, or mountain stood between their faces now. "You came after me," she said. "You looked lonely." "I was leading an army away from an avalanche. Very lonely." Her tusks showed with the beginning of a smile. Elias touched the pale scar through her eyebrow. "May I kiss you?" Zura's answer was quiet. "Yes." He kissed her. There was nothing temporary in it. Her mouth was warm despite the cold. The small tusks made him careful for one heartbeat. Then Zura's hand slid behind his neck and pulled him closer. Elias felt the strength in her body soften beneath him without becoming less powerful. The silver ring on her tusk touched his lower lip. Zura made a low sound in her throat that erased every sensible thought he possessed. His hand moved to her waist. Hers spread over the marriage mark beneath his open coat. The antlers and flame rested beneath her palm. When they separated, neither went far. "That," Elias said, "was a good joke after danger." Zura's amber eyes remained half closed. "Your standards are improving." Sorn cleared his throat from the tunnel. "The soldiers are entering through the western door," he called. "They appear grateful and extremely confused." Zura touched her forehead to Elias's once before releasing him. "Then we should disappoint them by surviving." The captured officer's records exposed the plan. Destroy a human regiment on Orc land, provoke a winter war, then seize the mountain mines while both kingdoms fought. With Elias, the recovered survey, and hundreds of surviving soldiers as witnesses, the conspiracy collapsed. Instead, the army arrested its own officers. Zura recovered Elias's cipher key from the Red Lantern Rider. Sorn recovered 3 barrels of powder and announced that the Ashhorn Council would enjoy asking questions about them. They returned to the winter camp the following afternoon. The storm had passed. Sunset colored the basin copper and red. Every tent stood open. Hundreds of clan members waited around the central stones. The binding meal remained prepared. Long tables held roasted meat, black bread, winter apples, and bowls of red pigment. At the center burned a shared fire. Elias stopped at the gate. The mark on his chest had cracked, faded, and survived. Zura stood beside him in her charcoal cloak. A bruise darkened one green cheek. Several braids had escaped their cords. Elias had never seen anyone look more beautiful. "You can still remove it," she said. Behind them, Sorn made a sound of disbelief. Zura looked over her shoulder. He raised both hands. "I said nothing." "You breathe judgment." I nearly died in an ore cart because both of you obey ancient poetry too literally. My judgment has earned rest." He walked toward the council fire. Elias turned back to Zura. "You truly want me to choose?" "Yes." "Even now?" "Especially now." "If I wash it away, what happens?" "You remain beneath guest protection until the roads open. Then you return to your life." "And you?" "I return to mine." Her voice stayed steady. Her eyes did not. Elias looked toward her tent at the edge of the camp. Smoke rose from its small stovepipe. Only one sleeping platform waited inside. "What happens if I keep it?" he asked. Zura stepped closer. "The clan asks whether you understand the promise." "Sharing the same fire?" "Yes." "Neither eats while the other starves?" "Yes." "Neither sleeps while the other freezes?" Her mouth softened. "Yes." "Neither walks into danger alone?" "That rule may require interpretation." "I prefer expansion." Zura looked down, hiding a smile that her tusks revealed anyway. Elias touched the red cords in her braids. "What do you want?" She lifted her gaze. "You," she said. "Not the map. Not the alliance your presence may create. Not a debt for the road you saved. I want the stubborn man who falls from horses, argues with mountains, and follows me into avalanches when ordered to remain safe." "That man sounds difficult." "He is exhausting." "Then you should wash the mark away." Zura caught his coat and pulled him against her. "I said I wanted him. I did not say I understood why." Elias kissed her before the entire camp. The reaction began with silence. Then an older woman near the fire laughed. Children cheered because adults appeared uncertain. Hunters struck cups against the tables. Someone shouted advice that caused Zura to end the kiss long enough to threaten him in Orcish. Sorn stood beside the marriage stone. He waited until the noise settled. Then he addressed the clan. "The human carried the map that saved our winter road," he said. "He exposed the army's betrayal. He crossed the breaking lake. He also demonstrated poor judgment repeatedly." Elias nodded. "Accurate." Sorn's broken tusk lifted. "He understands our family flame better than several people born beneath it. If anyone challenges his right to wear the mark, challenge me first." No one moved. Sorn looked at Elias. "Do not make me regret that." "I intend to make you regret many things, but not that one." Zura elbowed Elias in the ribs. The council brought forward a basin of steaming water. Elias looked at it. "The final chance," Zura said. "Wash the mark and remain a guest. Touch the water and refuse it and remain promised." He knelt before the basin. Steam moved over his hands. The camp watched. Elias dipped 2 fingers into the warm water. He touched them to one blurred line near his collarbone. Zura did not breathe. He wiped away the damaged edge. Then he took the clay bowl beside the basin and repaired the line himself. A sound moved through the clan like wind through trees. Elias stood. "I wear it by choice," he said, first in human speech. Then, slowly, in Orcish. Zura's eyes shone in the firelight. She placed one palm over the mark. Elias covered her hand with his. The binding meal began. Later, after speeches, food, 3 separate arguments about whether Elias had pronounced the vow correctly, and enough plum liquor to weaken the mountain, Zura led him back to her tent. Their tent, according to half the camp. Inside, the stove burned low. Elias removed his coat. Zura unfastened the red cords from her braids and let the heavy black hair fall around her shoulders. He had seen her fight, track, command, rescue, and terrify armed men. Watching her loosen her hair made him forget how to speak. Zura noticed. "The mark is lower," she said. "I know where it is now. Your aim may be improving." She came to him carrying the bowl of red pigment. "The pair should carry matching symbols after the binding meal," she said. "Mine is usually placed here." She touched the skin below her left collarbone. Elias looked at the bowl. "You want me to paint it?" "If you choose." The repetition had become sacred between them. He took the bowl. Zura removed the charcoal cloak and loosened the upper ties of her dark tunic, exposing one powerful green shoulder and the skin above her heart. Firelight moved along her collarbone. She sat on the edge of the bed. Elias knelt before her. "May I?" he asked. "Yes." He dipped one finger into the clay. The first line curved from her shoulder toward her heart. Zura's skin was warm beneath the red pigment. Her breath changed when his knuckles brushed the edge of her tunic. He drew the antlers, then the flame. Zura watched him rather than the mark. When he finished, Elias placed his palm gently over it. Her hand covered the symbol on his chest. 2 flames beneath 2 hands. "Does this make the promise equal?" he asked. "It always was." "Good." Zura pulled him upward and kissed him. This time, no one interrupted. The fire sank lower. Snow touched the hide walls. Their coats fell beside the bed, followed by his boots and her weapons, each placed with considerably less care. When they finally lay beneath the furs, Zura rested against his chest, with one leg across his and her hand over the mark she had first painted to save his life. Elias touched the matching symbol above her heart. "1 moon," he said, "until the final vow. Do we need another army?" "No." "A cliff?" "No." "An avalanche?" Zura lifted her head. "If you require danger to remain interested, I can invite Sorn to breakfast." "1 moon without danger," Elias said quickly. "Wise." She kissed him again, slow and warm. Outside, the Ashhorn camp guarded the shared fire. Inside, they guarded their own. 1 moon later, Elias stood beside Zura beneath the marriage stones. The western road had been sealed by both kingdoms. Human investigators had filled 3 prisons with officers who suddenly claimed the avalanche had been misunderstood. The Ashhorn clan received legal recognition of its winter basin after Elias redrew every false border on the royal maps. He did not return south. He sent his landlord the rent and a note explaining that his horse had chosen retirement. At the final vow, Zura wore a dark red ceremonial cloak fastened with silver antlers. Her black hair fell in a single heavy braid, threaded with red cord. The marriage mark above her heart had been renewed that morning by Elias's hand. His own mark had been renewed by hers. Sorn stood as witness, looking deeply inconvenienced by happiness. The clan elder asked Zura whether she chose to share her fire. "I choose," she said. The elder asked Elias the same. He looked at the woman who had found him bleeding in the snow, broken a law to protect him, and then offered his freedom so many times that he finally understood she would never take it from him. "I choose," he answered. They exchanged no rings. Instead, Zura placed her hunting knife in his hands. Elias placed his brass compass in hers. Protection and direction, strength and a road home. Then Zura kissed him beneath the carved antlers, while snow began falling over the camp. Months later, travelers passing through the northern mountains learned to look for a large black tent near the map house. Inside, a human cartographer argued with an orc pathfinder about borders, blankets, and whose turn it was to add wood to the stove. A marriage mark hung painted above the door, not because one person owned the other, not because a law demanded it, because, on the coldest night of Elias's life, Zura had shared her fire. And when morning came, he chose to keep it.